Congratulations! You are now the owner of one of the biggest businesses in the world, a massive, sprawling, commercial retail shopping mall.
The ink on the contract is finally dry. Welcome to our latest documentary exploration, where we are stepping into the incredibly high-stakes, capital-intensive world of commercial retail real estate.
Look, the keys are literally in your hands now. Every single decision you make from this moment forward is going to determine whether this property becomes a massively profitable global empire or if it just completely collapses under the weight of its own concrete. Being a mall owner today, it is absolutely not for the faint of heart. We're talking intricate operational dynamics, terrifying legal landmines, and incredibly aggressive capitalization.
So, as the brand new CEO of this multi-hundred-million-dollar asset, I really want you to ask yourself, what is your very first move?
Right, like, how do you actually protect a massive investment like this? How do you survive a sudden, drastic drop in sales and keep the lights on? Let's dive in and pull apart how this machine actually works.
Chapter 1. Welcome to your empire. So let's face the reality of what owning a mall actually means in today's market. I mean, we've all seen the doom and gloom headlines about the retail apocalypse, right? People have been predicting the death of the shopping mall for literally 20 years.
Yeah, but is physical retail actually dead? Well, not if you ask the industry giants. Take David Simon, the CEO of Simon Property Group. He famously said, "I'm telling you, the suburbs are going to be hot and our quality real estate is going to be where the action is." And he hit the nail on the head. Prime, Class A regional destinations are still pumping out incredibly strong tenant sales. The operators who are actually winning out there are playing a very long game. They know that owning the most defensible, irreplaceable real estate is the true path to market dominance.
Which brings us to Chapter 2, Unlocking the Revenue Engine. Okay, so how does the money actually flow through your new property? Because it is definitely not as simple as just waiting around for a rent check every month. The absolute bedrock of your revenue is the lease structure, specifically what's called a triple net or NNN lease. Under this setup, your tenants aren't just paying for their square footage. They're actually on the hook for their pro rata share of the property taxes, the building insurance, and the common area maintenance, which we call CAM charges.
And honestly, that is an absolute superpower for an owner. It brilliantly insulates your bottom line from all that operational expense volatility. Think about it. If property taxes suddenly spike or security costs go through the roof, your tenants absorb that blow, not you.
Right, and if you look at how the revenue streams are distributed here, those CAM charges really just recover your operational costs. Your actual upside, your real profit, comes from your base minimum rent and, crucially, your percentage rent.
Exactly. Percentage rent is a game changer. It basically means that once a tenant hits a specific sales threshold, you start taking a cut of their gross sales. So when your tenants win, you win. Your entire job as the owner is to drive so much foot traffic that those sales thresholds are completely shattered.
But wait, are we really just going to rely on these rigid 10-year inline leases? What if we need immediate cash flow right now?
Well, that is exactly where you have to master specialty leasing. You monetize the very corridors your customers are walking through. We're talking brand kiosks, retail merchandising units, or RMUs, and those massive immersive takeover events. These flexible short-term agreements are fantastic. They drive immediate cash flow, they let you test out new brands without taking on long-term risk, and they create this dynamic retail entertainment vibe that keeps shoppers coming back for more.
Chapter 3. Hidden Leaks and Landmines.
So it's not all upside, obviously. As an owner, there are some terrifying legal and financial traps lurking deep in your lease agreements. And if you aren't paying close attention, they can literally destroy this mall.
For sure. And the most dangerous one by far is the co-tenancy clause. Look, retail properties don't succeed in a vacuum. They rely on a highly synergistic mix of stores. Smaller tenants usually sign their leases specifically because of the massive foot traffic generated by those huge anchor department stores. So the co-tenancy clause is a provision that basically says, hey, if that big anchor tenant leaves, we smaller tenants are legally allowed to drastically reduce our rent or even terminate our leases entirely.
Let's actually walk through this sequence because it is devastating. Step 1. Your huge anchor tenant goes bankrupt and vacates the building.
Right, which leads to, step 2, that co-tenancy clause is instantly triggered across dozens of your smaller inline leases.
Then step 3, those inline tenants immediately slash their rent payments. Sometimes they start paying only a tiny percentage of their gross sales instead of their guaranteed base rent.
And finally, step 4, your net operating income just plummets and the value of your entire asset tanks. It's a terrifying financial death spiral, and it happens incredibly fast.
So how in the world do you survive that? Well, it comes down to really smart negotiation. Savvy owners utilize tiered provisions. You never give a tenant a free pass to just walk away if a single anchor closes. Instead, you tier it. Say, if one anchor leaves, rent reduces to 75%. If two leave, maybe it drops to 50%. You absolutely must stagger your lease risk strategically so that one big closure doesn't just crater your entire business model overnight.
Okay, but what if I just want to bulldoze that empty department store and build some luxury apartments instead? Problem solved, right?
Yeah, actually, scratch that. It's not that simple. Welcome to the Reciprocal Easement Agreement, or the REA. This is a binding, heavily entrenched legal pact made between the different property owners in a development. These legacy REAs actually give your neighboring anchor tenants the power to completely block your redevelopment efforts if they think it might disrupt their parking or their shared operations. That kind of segmented fractional ownership can just paralyze your ability to innovate.
Chapter 4. Optimizing your tenant mix. Because of all those hurdles, you have to be wildly proactive. This is your offensive strategy. A thriving mall has to expertly balance two major things: daily needs and destination drivers. For daily needs, you're looking at things like grocers, urgent care clinics, pet care, stuff that drives high-frequency everyday visits.
Right. And on the flip side, you have your destination drivers. That's your boutique fitness studios, experiential dining, high-end entertainment, things designed to extend the customer's dwell time. Think about it. If people only come to run errands, they leave immediately. But if they only come for luxury splurges, they just don't come often enough. You really need both to create a resilient, bulletproof ecosystem.
And the shift we're seeing across the real estate market right now is stark. The old legacy strategy of relying strictly on giant, traditional department stores and big box apparel, that is a guaranteed path to failure today.
Absolutely. The modern strategy demands a diverse, highly resilient ecosystem. You're not just playing landlord anymore, you are actively curating consumer behavior.
To actually pull off that mix, you have to execute a really precise playbook. First, you aggressively audit your current tenant performance. Who is actually driving real value?
Second, you conduct a void and gap analysis, basically asking, what does this specific community desperately need that isn't here yet?
Third, you orchestrate synergistic co-tenancy.
This is huge. This is when you deliberately place the high-end boutique fitness studio right next door to the premium juice bar to capture all that morning crossover traffic.
It's brilliant. Exactly. And finally, you have to repurpose your low-performing dead zones into high-energy spaces, like maybe a shared artisanal food hall. Because leasing isn't just about filling empty square footage, it's about designing one unified, seamless customer experience. Chapter 5, the mixed-use survival strategy.
Because sometimes just optimizing the retail side isn't enough. You actually have to adapt the physical footprint of the mall itself.
Look at the playbook of industry-dominant players like Simon Property Group. They win by owning premier, irreplaceable destinations and maintaining incredibly strict capital discipline. But honestly, their real secret weapon is that they are deeply active operators. They don't just sit back and collect rent. They actively redevelop obsolete anchor boxes, and they even make strategic investments directly into the retail brands themselves to preserve their occupancy. They take control of their own destiny.
And that brings us to the future of the mall, adaptive reuse. This is literally the ultimate survival tactic. When that 100,000 square foot department store inevitably dies, you don't go looking for another massive department store to replace it. You tear it down.
Right. You build a bustling, mixed-use neighborhood in its place. You integrate high-density residential apartments, a boutique hotel, modern medical hubs, or even premium office space. You're taking a dying, obsolete retail box and turning it into a thriving, multidimensional community center.
Because here is the harsh, unvarnished reality. During recent market crises, the appraisal values for secondary and tertiary enclosed malls have dropped by up to 70%. Yeah, 70%.
The market brutally, and I mean brutally, punishes passive landlords. If you are not out there actively repositioning your asset, negotiating ironclad lease protections, and constantly evolving your physical space, your equity is going to get completely wiped out.
So you've seen the revenue engine, you know where the legal landmines are buried, you understand the sheer power of a modern tenant mix and the absolute necessity of adaptive reuse. The board of directors is looking at you. Your investors are waiting. If you owned this multi-million-dollar business starting tomorrow morning, what would be the very first decision you make and why?